Hey comic fans, Dave here at Ground Zero. It's Wednesday morning, which means it is time for another weekly look at what's new on the shelves at your favorite local comic book store. Now, if you were looking for a single word to describe this week's haul of books, well, that word could be big, or huge, or possibly massive. But my favorite actually is muy grande. Because let's face it, all that goodness is probably not going to be described in just one word, because that ominous rumbling you've been hearing is not actually unicorns, but in fact, all of those books trying to find a place on your local store's shelves. Now, actually, as an aside, if there are any government agencies still watching this program, and I know some of them are, well, there you go. You just have your newest threat level. Let's face it, going from threat level yellow to threat level blue, all the way up to threat level red just isn't enough in today's times. Now you've got it. Threat level, Unicorn Stampede. Eloquent and effective. Folks, come on. In these crazy times when you turn on your TV and all the channels, instead of a test pattern, have... you know exactly where you stand. Time to pack up your favorite comic and head for the hills. And it works in real life too, honestly. Try it. Hey, Margaret, how's your day going? You look kind of frazzled. Just look back at him and say, Unicorn Stampede. Effective, eloquent, and in just 2 words. That's a fact. So how many titles did we get in, you're probably thinking? Well, 83. We got in 83 comics. 83 different titles on the shelves back there for your pleasure and consumption. Obviously, you have some hard choices to make. And just in case you're wondering, the proper choice to make is spend lots of money at your local store. There, I've made it fairly easy. Okay, so what about these comics, you say? Well, let's start right with the big one, the one everybody is waiting for. Superman, Son of Kal-El, number 5. It's a big shocker. You're not going to believe what happens in this book. Unless you've had access to the news over the past 6 weeks, in which case you know exactly what happens in this book. Everybody knows what's happening in this book. That's why we get 1, 2, 3 covers. Spoiler alert. Either way, it's here now, so all the people that have been calling me, you can stop now. I've got plenty of copies back there on the shelf. So speculators, I have plenty of copies back there on the shelf, which means this won't be worth a whole lot of money, most likely, because there's enough copies floating around. You'll just have to go back and buy more copies of King Spawn, number 1. Okay, more comics. Yes, there are lots more comics. DC, well, just as everybody's going to be buying Superman, Son of Kal-El, probably nobody will be buying this one. Green Lantern just can't seem to find its audience. I don't understand why, because it's got a ton of green on the cover, and my daughter really likes this book. The rest of you should give it a try and make her happy. We'll see what happens. Let's see. Otherwise, Robins, new series. How many Robins have there been? Well, by my count, 5. But apparently there is another one that predates all of them who comes along and says, hey, folks, I was the original Robin, and you never should have been trained. And off we go. It's I think a 6-issue. Yep, it's a 6-issue series from DC, storing all of your favorite Robins, and apparently the other 5. So they're all in this book together, and that's why they call it Robins. Plural, Robins. This is the month of Robin, apparently. And of course, it's another week, so there's another Batman title, and 4 or 5 more Batman titles. Either way, everybody wants to be Batman, so here you go. I think this is the last Tynion issue, so we're almost done with Tynion's reign of terror through Batman. And okay, now you know how I feel. So everybody wants to be a Batman, not the least of which is Moon Knight, who really wants to be a Batman and succeeds pretty well, actually. I think he does his better job of it than most. And his new series is actually doing really well. We're, I think, on the 5th issue, and there's all sorts of really large chains. So there you go. Moon Knight wants to be a Batman. Shang-Chi probably also wants to be Batman, as does Thor, except he's got a hammer and no utility belt to hold it in. So all sorts of thunderous things going on in the new issue of Shang-Chi. And lastly, from Marvel, that I'm going to mention, because so many books, I can't hit them all. Dark Ages number 3. I don't have any idea what's going on in this book because I haven't read it yet. But it's by Tom Taylor. Tom Taylor's good. Actually, I like Tom Taylor. He does a good job writing books, so he's probably doing a good job on this one. And if I cared about Marvel crossovers, I would certainly be buying it, so you should be too. How's that for enthusiasm? Well, you want enthusiasm? Fantastic Four, number 1, completely reimagined. It was actually just over 60 years ago today. It was August 8th, I believe. August 8th, 1961. Very first issue of Fantastic Four premiered on the stands and changed comics forever. And so now in the 60-year and 1 week anniversary, because yeah, it's 60 years and 1 week, we get a brand new version of this book, panel for panel, recreated by a bunch of top talent in the industry. Honestly, this is a book made for me. So the rest of you, well, if you want to buy my book, you may. It's called Fantastic Four #1 Anniversary Edition. See, kind of nice to get these special books aimed just specifically at you. Yours will come too. Or perhaps your special book is Sonic the Imposter Syndrome. I don't know that everybody loves Sonic, but most people love Sonic. Either way, it's here. It sells really, really well. Then that's all I know. That's all I need to know. Everybody loves Sonic. Maybe not as much as everybody loves Batman, but almost everybody loves Sonic. Meanwhile, another one that definitely wants to be Batman is Spawn. Now, this is King Spawn, the latest issue of that. I think we're up to 4, something like that. Anyway, latest issue of King Spawn. Honestly, the similarities are endless. They both have huge, incredible flowing capes. Batman's got a utility belt. Spawn has a chain. They're practically the same thing. So here you go. Wants to be Batman. You know who doesn't actually want to be Batman, though? That would be My Little Pony. Now, I know that's kind of weak as a seg, but my granddaughter loves it when I show My Little Pony comics on these videos. So for her, here we go. The newest from them, Generations #2. All of your favorite My Little Pony goodness together in one book. You're welcome. Okay, now we're actually the books that I do like. So that enthusiasm you've been hoping I would eventually muster, well, here it comes, because all sorts of great, last week when I said it wasn't a great week for comics and I kind of struggled to find things to talk about, this is the opposite. There is quantity and quality back there. Absolutely, I love this week. So many good things. Starting off with Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino. See, I got his name right this time. On Primordial, 3rd issue of that. This series is really cool. So if you're not reading it, well, you're just not as cool as the rest of us. So for the rest of us cool people, hey, come on in and pick up the newest issue of Primordial. Let's see, lots and lots of the apocalypse. Obviously, we want to know what's on comic creators' minds. It is the end of the world. And, to me, we've only got one more issue after this one of this book. That may be the end of the world. Finally, I found something to complain about with Not All Robots, because you all know how much I love this book. You're thinking, is there anything possibly that is not perfect about this book? Yes, there is. It's not gonna be long enough. We have one more issue to go after this one. I read this one last night. It's great. The first page alone actually is worth the price of this book. I guarantee that. I can't find my Bats fact, but that's a fact. The first page alone is worth buying this book. But it's only got one more to go. There's just too much here. He set up too much stuff to ever possibly cram it into so few issues. Either way, this has been fabulous. If you're not reading it, buy the trade as soon as it comes out. I plan on stocking heavily because I do love this. This is my favorite book really this year. I really, really love this book. Either way, it's here and it's in this week. And it is about the end of the world in some fashion. As is My Date with Monsters. This is actually a cool book that I really struggled trying to think of a way to summarize it. But man, you just can't. It involves holes being punched in reality and monsters from your dreams becoming real, and a woman figuring out a way to get around to that. And the only way for her to solve problems is to make her own dreams real. And so she's trying to find love, but everybody's a monster. I mean, because there's so many monsters now in the world. Luckily, she's got a monster who works as a constant companion to kind of help save her. And he eats monsters. And I know that sounds like a mess, and it kind of is, but it's a glorious mess. It's kind of fun. And it's from Paul Tobin, I think. Yes, it is from Paul Tobin, who does Bunny Mask and all sorts of cool books. If you're looking for something kind of weird and off the beaten path, My Date with Monsters gets my seal of approval. From a writer that I really like, Ram V, Radio Apocalypse. Also about the end of the world. Asteroid strikes the Earth and virtually most of it is gone. There is one radio station left on the planet, and that's this one. How's that for setup? Ram V, Radio Apocalypse from Vault. You notice we're talking a lot about Vault Comics these days, and Aftershock and AWA, because that's where a lot of good action is. However, there is still some good action at Image Comics. Yes, there is, because I love Image Comics, and this is actually my favorite book this week, except possibly for Not All Robots, because that's my favorite book of the year. But this one actually was really pretty good. Matthew Rosenberg. Now, they had a debacle with a bunch of 7-inch singles they were going to try to include with the deluxe versions of this book. That's a topic for another day. Needless to say, they're not here, and most shops aren't getting very many of them anyway. However, the story is great. end of the world, very difficult to describe, summarize. Think that classic Star Trek episode Miri combined with, I don't know, Love and Rockets. It's probably Love and Rockets and classic Star Trek Miri. And if you don't get those two references, you're just going to have to come in and ask me. Either way, it's really good. It's definitely different. Not meant for the superhero crowd, which I applaud. The book is titled, What's the Furthest Place from Here? And this is my secondary pick of the week after Not All Robots. Okay, well, trades. Yes, there's not only trades this week, there's good trades this week. See how much better this week is than last week? You should go back and rewatch last week's video just to see the contrast. Even the DC books this week are good ones. In particular, Plunge. This is Joe Hill and Stuart Eminem. That is as good a team as you're going to get on a spooky horror type comic. It's gross. You know, it's supposed to be. It's a horror book. It's called Plunge, and it is in this week in trade form, for those of you who didn't pick up the floppies. As is the nice hardcover edition of The Other History of the DC Universe from John Ridley. It is a pretty book. It is a well-written book. It is a cool book. It's definitely one you should have. So, honestly, good stuff, people. All right. Speaking of good stuff that is actually not very new, but hasn't been on the shelves in a while, and that is The Untold Tales of Spider-Man. These books came out in floppies, I want to say in the 90s. Kurt Busiek was at his peak. He was writing Astro City and a lot of good things at that time. He was really on a roll, and he did a really good series of just flat-out fun Spider-Man comics. I'm not talking kid stuff, but if you're looking for just good, fun, non-complicated Spider-Man stories, this is actually what you want to go for. Perfect. Perfect for younger readers, perfect for all ages, perfect for pretty much everybody who likes superhero books and the innocence they can convey. Untold Tales of Spider-Man, the complete collection. I don't think this is probably complete. It might be. It was a long run. But this is a pretty thick book, so either way, it is out on the shelves this week. Go look it up at your local comic shop. Just a couple more I'm going to mention. First off, one I didn't read, Shadecraft. But a lot of people read it and said they thought it was actually pretty snappy. So, well, it's out in trade, and if I can find the time, I probably shall add that to my list, and perhaps you should too. Shadecraft from Image Comics. Also from Image Comics, a book that I have to mention because Michael says this is probably his favorite book of the year, at least as far as new stuff goes, and that is Homesick Pilots. He loves this book. You should absolutely give this book a try. Again, Image is on a roll. Image is actually, I think, leading the industry in really innovative, cool stories. Homesick Pilots being one of them. So, second volume of that is in this week. Any comic shop worth its salt should have both of these volumes in stock for you to come in and take a look, including us. Last book I'm going to mention is a book that actually came out in paperback, but finally now we have a deluxe hardcover edition, Junji Ito's Cat Diary. This is delightful. Now, if you know the work of Junji Ito, you know he is absolutely demented and horrific. His stuff is just awful, nightmare-inducing. But he loves cats, and his Cat Diary is just a load of fun. Honestly, this should be for everybody who likes cats, for everybody who likes manga, for everybody who likes horrific stuff. I don't know. Is there anybody that I left out? Either way, Junji Ito's Cat Diary in this week in a cool deluxe hardcover form. Honestly, memes compare him to Miyazaki. You can't go wrong with this book. And you can't go wrong by coming into your local comic shop. One more time. 83 books, people. 83 different titles. All awaiting you at your local comic book store. So, folks, make good choices, and we all know what that good choice is. Spend your money at your local store. They certainly need it going in this holiday season. As always, folks, we love you. Stay safe, be careful, and visit your local comic book store.